Burnt toast!
What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Right, how are you, sir?
All right, I think I'm signed in and ready to go. How's
All right,
things?
cool.
Where are you?
I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Oh, I know
All,
that town pretty well.
all day long, all night long. You played here in Huntington at Two E's in 2019 with Eric Kalb. I was at that show.
Oh my God,
Yeah, you
Fort
did.
Wayne.
It
What was
was
the name
you.
of the place?
It was outside of Fort Wayne in Huntington, Indiana, a place called Two Eves, an outdoor winery.
Yes, yeah. That was a fun gig actually.
Yeah, man, you look like you were having a good time. I used to play there all the time. There were some things that changed, but things change.
Tell me about it. I
Yeah.
used to play in Fort Wayne at a strip club when I was a teenager with Willie and the Mob.
What was the name of the place? Do you remember?
I only played there twice. I can't remember. I was
Okay.
like 16, 17.
This would have been what, then that would have been
Early
1990.
90s.
Yeah. So I probably played there too, because I played everywhere I possibly could in 1990.
Yeah,
So,
it had a very specific thing about it. No one was dancing when we were playing. We were like playing in between. It was very strange.
like they danced when you weren't playing?
Yes, which was kind of different. But anyway, that was many lives ago.
No comment. We're on the air. So,
Many lives ago.
yeah, no comment. So anyway, what would you like to talk about first? Because I'm good to go chronologically, or I'm good to go with what you're doing now.
I think you can.
I'm loaded and fair.
Yeah, we could start. We could start now and work the other way if you want to, or jump around. Whatever you're in the mood
Sure,
for.
that's fine. So right now you're on the verge of doing a solo tour, correct? The endless
I'm
road.
kind of in. I'm in the solo tour technically. I started back at Jam and Java in Vienna, Virginia, a couple weeks ago, and I continue on to next week. I'm playing at Jimmy's in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and then I'm playing at the local in Saugerties, New York, and then at the Danny Clinch Gallery, March 28th in Asbury, New Jersey, and then in April. I've got a gig at the City Winery. I think that's Saturday, April 26th. I'm also at the Funky Biscuit in Boca Raton on Monday, April 6th. And the final gig is May 1st. I'm in New Orleans doing a Jazz Fest after show,
Wow.
acoustic show with special guests. And so far, Fred Tackett from Little Feat, Mark Stone, who's a great local musician in New Orleans, and John Papagro, the piano player, are all going to sit in with me at that gig. So it's a cool tour. I mean, it's all, I always say, if you can spell my name, you can find me. Good luck with that. ScottSharrard.com, Sharrard.
Okay. Now tell me what you're doing on the tour then.
This show, it's called Endless Road Live, and it's based on, I've been doing a Substack for the last couple years where I write essays about music, American music history, and my own kind of adventures and all of it. And I also do like top 10 lists and things like that. I mean, it's a music culture, American music culture based kind of, newsletter or whatever. And it's been doing really well. And I decided there's a lot of stories I tell about, songs I wrote with Greg Allman or Little Feat or, working with people like Hubert Sumlin or Levon Helm in my younger years. And I decided to turn it into like a storytelling live show where, I play and sing a number of songs, and then I tell a lot of stories in between about how I wrote the tunes or about the artists that I work with who are all kind of these musical legends that I was lucky enough to cross paths with.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. And you're doing your own compositions as well, the solo stuff as well, I assume.
I don't do any solo stuff anymore. I've kind of put that to bed. I mean, I do the song "Endless Road," which is an older original of mine, which is just kind of like it's the theme of the whole vibe. So I do that song. But no, I do the songs I wrote either for or with Greg Allman and his band, and I do the songs I've written for or with the guys in Little Feat, and then I also do a couple older Greg songs, a couple older Will George songs to just kind of like bookend and contextualize The Beatles and Rolling Stones of my, besides the actual Beatles and Rolling Stones, the American Beatles and Rolling Stones of my youth were Whittle Feet and the Allman Brothers. So I kind of tell the stories through that lens, as they were the bands when I was in my early teens I wanted to join, and I ended up in these kind of versions of these two different musical families. So that's really what the whole show is about.
How tremendous is that, man? I mean, how does that feel like to, because when I was coming up, I'm 62 in about 2 weeks. So when I was 13, 14, I discovered both of those bands. And I used to literally, I remember telling Kenny Gradney this, when I met him. I played along with Waiting for Columbus side two every day, like every day when I was 14.
I used to
And
do that too on the drums, as a matter of fact.
that's me. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, because that's the drum album. That's the one. That was like still to me, that's some of the most tremendous drumming ever. The rhythm section is just unbelievable. But just to be there, and then I discovered Fillmore East and Eat a Peach at that time too. And for me, that would be, I don't even think of those people as like people. I realized that when I met Kenny Gradney, it was like, wow, you were like a concept. I
Yeah.
mean, you weren't really like a dude that you could sit down and have lunch with or something. You know what I mean? So that's got to be like, I mean, was there an adjustment for that? I mean, what was that like meeting those people and then being involved with them?
Well, I mean, you just, when you're gonna come to the table with your heroes and collaborate with them, you've just you gotta meet them where they are, and you find out pretty quickly that because you were raised on it, you all like watch the same movies and read the same books and have similar senses of humor, and there's kind of a tribalism to it, and it's very deep seated in like a garage band mentality. So if you kind of follow the emotional threads of that, you connect. And when you connect and become bandmates, it becomes a very different relationship than the relationship of, I mean, I was still mentored by all these guys, but also, I've had to step to all of them in different ways at times to keep things on track and be honest and be reliable and be productive. So it becomes collaborative. I mean, you also can't, you got to separate the myth from the day to day, because we're creating our own new myths all the time to people who've never seen us before. You can't get trapped in the narrative you're creating. You just got to go with the flow.
Right. Do you feel like you're furthering a language?
I mean, yeah, I mean, well, on a good day, for I guess furthering the language. I mean, the first draft I saw, so when I was 13, 14, same age as you, I discovered Little Feat and the Allman Brothers, and the Allman Brothers had Seven Turns. Little Feat had Let It Roll, and they had Craig Fuller with Feat
Yeah.
doing Lowell stuff, and they had Warren with the Allman Brothers doing essentially Dwayne stuff. So
Right.
I've already seen these bands in their second incarnations or third incarnations or whatever, because you had
Yeah.
Dan Toller before Warren, who was also just astoundingly great.
Right.
Um, so that gave me a lot of confidence coming into these situations in the Greg Allman Band and Little Feat in their later years, of being like, well, when these bands changed my life, they didn't have Lowell or Dwayne there. So
Yeah.
why not be able to step in and play the speak the language, as you said, but then also add your own little stories and thread to the history to just keep it going. And that's kind of how I look at it. I try to be as sober about it as possible.
Right. Right. But I mean that, if you look at it a certain way, there is an awesome responsibility to what you do, because people, because you played with Greg Allman and Little Feat, man, and those were like iconic bands, and there aren't so many bands like that anymore, you know, and there's just a whole big, I mean, they've written books about these bands. You know what I mean?
I mean, we're living in the shadow of a renaissance, is what it
Boom.
is. I mean, that's
Yeah,
why
man.
I had a friend who just the other day went to see the Toy Factory band, with Marcus King
Oh yeah,
playing
that's
with
really good. Yeah.
playing with the drummer from Marshall Tucker, and it's like there's Marcus doing Toy Caldwell and Charlie, and then you got me playing Will George and Paul's parts, and then you got John Mayer doing Jerry Garcia, you got Derek Trucks doing Dwayne Allman. I mean, we're in this era where we're just living in the shadow of the epoch. We're not having our own. We're interpreters. The shadow is just too long. And the thing is, too, is you still have, boomers and probably to a lesser extent, but to a degree, Gen X people who, they want to go out and have nostalgia and memories and hear old stuff. They don't want to, leave their house and pay money and stand in line and go in and hear something new and be surprised. So we're also playing into that feature of our time. And I suppose part of it is, just accepting that this is American music history and someone has to perpetuate it, much in the same way that, Yo-Yo Ma would play Bach cello suites, or Wynton Marsalis would play the Duke Ellington arrangements for big band that basically nobody's going to pay for unless they're a connoisseur. And if they're a connoisseur, they want to hear it done exactly the way it would have been done when Duke or Bach was alive.
Sure.
And we've entered that period for rock and roll wholeheartedly, because still the best-selling acts outside of Taylor Swift are the legacy acts. I mean, the Who are on the 15th year of their farewell tour. Little Feat starting a farewell tour. I mean, it's all part of this idea that the last of the greats are slipping away, but no one seems to really be reckoning, in America at least, with what comes next successfully. I think the UK is. I think there's a bunch of amazing young artists coming out of the UK and Canada right now, but the US, not so much. It's most of the best artists here, even if they have great original songs, they're not getting over.
Right. Because there's not really a means. I don't know that there's a means. I mean, is that it?
I mean, there is for bands there's always been a means for trust fund bands. Like there used to be the Strokes when I was coming up, and now there's this band Geese, and I think they're from very wealthy families from Park Slope. Well, from what I can tell, they're an awesome band, but obviously their financial situation is completely insulated and totally autonomous. The concept of a record label and tastemakers DJing a radio show that has a reach and spontaneously programming whatever they want. I mean, there's WWOZ in New Orleans,
Right.
which I listen to religiously on the digital app on my phone now, but there's very few people doing terrestrial radio where they have any kind of say or reach. And obviously labels are just their content acquisition hedge funds at this point. They're acquiring back catalogs, or they're acquiring successful influencers and taking some kind of piece of that already existing revenue. They're not signing people to multiple album deals and developing them with an investment and then recouping off of it. None of that is happening anymore. So those systems are not in place to foster that. Now, Canada and the UK, they have systems where if you're a performing artist, you can actually, receive benefits from the government, and there's they obviously, those countries have universal health care. They have, all kinds of protections in place for people who want to be entrepreneurial in music that are way more advantageous than what's going on here. Also, they still have record labels to a certain extent. They still do have multi-album deals there. They still do have A&R people to more of an extent than you have here. So, musically, I think that's why they're eating our lunch, is because they have societal benefits to being a musical artist. Here, it's just the law of the jungle. Whatever
Right.
gets the clicks and makes the money wins. It doesn't matter if you're, if you're sewing sweaters on YouTube or playing guitar on YouTube or TikTok. It's all about those algorithms. It's not about an album and a song. But I think going to shows is the only kind of sacred space left for where you can't fake it, and also where I think artists like myself can actually make a little money is with the live show, because it's a novelty, I think, essentially.
Hmm. Now, you mentioned there were some artists that you admired in Canada and in the UK. Could you enumerate on that? Could you who should we be checking out?
Well, I think the best guitar players coming out right now are all from Canada. You've got the sort of musical family of, I think these guys are from Winnipeg, if I remember correctly, but like Ariel Posen, Joey Landreth,
Okay.
amazing guitar players. And they play the hell out of the slide, man, in their own, they have their own sounds. They write great songs. They sing great. Joey just had that song, Made Up Mind. Or no, not Made Up Mind. That's a Tedeschi Truck song. What is it called? The song that Bonnie Raitt just won a Grammy for, I think, was
Okay.
Joey's song.
Okay.
Um, and then Garrett Mason, man. I mean, Garrett Mason is the best guitar player out there. Like, he's my favorite. And he lives somewhere near Fredericton, New Brunswick on the East Coast in Canada. And he doesn't really leave. His dad was a famous blues harmonica player named Dutchy Mason from Canada.
Okay.
Um, but go look up Garrett Mason on YouTube, man. I mean, this cat is like absurd, absurdly talented. On the UK side, I mean, I feel like they have our best singer songwriters right now, and I'll just go through the list. Some of them are obvious. There's Ray, and she's an unbelievable vocalist and songwriter. Then you have Sam Fender, who I think is, he's my favorite rock artist out right now. Olivia Dean, who obviously everyone's freaking out about now, but I've known about Olivia for a while. And then there was an artist collective of musicians over there led by this incredible producer, multi instrumentalist who goes by the name Inflow, and it's
Okay.
him and his, I think it's his wife or girlfriend, and they have this studio, and they have all these musicians and singers and choreographers and video people and stuff, and they do these unbelievable live shows of all original music, and their group is called SAULT, SAULT. And I think they've already made, in the short time they've been together, they've already made like a dozen albums that you can hear.
Okay.
And it's
I,
all, everyone I talked about, they all play original music. None of these people I talked about play, they rarely play cover songs of any sort. And it's all very topical. It's all very of the moment. And I think most of these people are, they're definitely all under 40, if not under 30. So that's the stuff I'm really pumped about right now, and it's what I listen to most of the time.
okay. Cool. Thank you for that information. So uh, Little Feat is on their last farewell tour, which I've heard is supposed to last more than a year or so. Um,
It'll just be like every other farewell tour. I mean, when did the Eagles do Hell Freezes Over, right? Was that like the
92,
90s?
93.
Okay, so I don't know. It's like any of these. I mean, what we're trying to do is grow up a little bit because, you know, touring with a bunch of expenses right now, and who knows how much gas is about to go up and all that. I mean, it is crazy to go out there and do multi-bus truck tour with salaries for a whole bunch of people and stuff. I mean, it's crazy.
Mhm.
It's just not sustainable to go out for weeks at a time anymore and have days off with all this stuff. Especially when you're not making any revenue from streaming or royalties. You know, all the money you're making is in your ticket and your merch stand. So what we're going to try to do for next year is do what I've always affectionately called the romantic weekend model, which, you fly somewhere on Thursday, you play somewhere Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you go home Monday. And basically the fans, come to you. It's a mountain to Muhammad situation. So,
Yeah.
set up in Chicago for 3 nights, play the Chicago theater, go home. The next month, go to New York, play for 3 nights, go home. Go to Denver for 3 nights, maybe occasionally, maybe occasionally you get a bus for a few days and you try to tack another 2 or 3 dates on, but you're never away for longer than a week, and you're not out there, really just leaving all your money out in front of the hotel uh,
Right.
when it comes to days off and long runs. And I mean, yeah, we won't hit any of the tertiary markets. We won't hit any small markets anymore. It's all going to be major cities. But the way I see it is, this farewell tour, it's already expensive to come see us. So at that point, make a weekend out of it. Fly in, to a cool city, come see Little Feat every night, get some great meals. Like there's no reason for us to be out there, roaming around the
Yeah.
Midwest in with a bunch of gear anymore for this
Yeah,
band.
because you're the youngest guy in the band, aren't you?
Yeah, technically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not mentally, but physically, I'm the youngest.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm thinking like Fred Tackett is 80 years old, right?
He just turned 80 in August, I think, or September.
That's that's got to be uh, that can be challenging, I would assume.
Not for Fred, not so far. Like I was saying, I'm the one who's, technically the youngest. Um, Fred and I are actually going to start touring as a duo a little bit starting this year, so you can look
Okay.
out for that too, as an acoustic duo, which is also a really cool way to hear the music in a different kind of context. But Fred doesn't have any plans on slowing that down soon, so I think that'll last for a good while as well, doing
I
the
don't
the duo
I don't
gigs.
I don't think people there are two people in that band in particular. Well, there's more than two people, but there are two people in that band that to me I don't think people realize how iconic they are. And one is Fred Tackett and the other is Bill Payne. I think that Fred Tackett, I mean, The Pretender and Silk Degrees and Bob Dylan and all the stuff that he did. He's on so many great albums. I mean, he's just on everything. And I don't think that Fred has ever really, they've never made the connection that that's that guy.
Well, if you want a deep dive on that, Fred Tackett and I went and did a instructional video with True Fire a couple years ago that's out, and it's a guitar instructional course. But what the conceit of it was that I wanted to really help highlight Fred's session work. So we do his part on "Running on Empty" by Jackson Browne. We
Right.
do we do some obscure stuff too. We do like Tom Waits, "Gin Soaked Boy," and obviously a bunch of Little Feat stuff too. But yeah, his resume is crazy, man, and he was just right in the center of the scene in LA. And one of the things he did a lot of was playing acoustic guitar on those albums. Like he's playing the acoustic guitar on the Ricky Lee Jones song "Chucky's in Love."
Yeah.
He's playing the acoustic guitar on "Tonight's the Night" by Rod Stewart. It's him on acoustic. It's Jesse Ed Davis on electric.
Right.
So when we did the True Fire, we recreated "Tonight's the Night," where Fred played his part and I played the Jesse Ed Davis part, and we kind of
Cool.
figured them out, juxtaposed them. So, yeah, I mean, he's Fred and Bill. I mean, as a guitar player, singer, there's nothing like being able to sing and play with those two, as far as the chordal movement goes with songs.
Hmm.
Uh, they're they both have a sixth sense for never playing the wrong thing somehow. I don't know how they do it, but they're unbelievable at it, and they make you feel so supported when you play with them. I
Yeah.
mean, look. I mean, don't ask me. Ask Linda Ronstadt or Michael McDonald. I mean, they hire these guys too and feel the same way I do about them.
I was
And
going to
that's
say, I think that Bill Payne is the guy who came up with that, what they associate with yacht rock. The ba da 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 da.
well, this is the classic. You're correct, and that's the classic. What I call the curse of Little Feat is that like they provided this incredible bed for all of the most successful artists to lay
Yeah.
in different ways, both as an influence and also as sidemen.
Hmm.
And in a way, um, they kind of gave away the store a few times there by accident.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have the yacht rock documentary. They talk about the
Yeah, man.
ba ba da 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 bo do da ba da.
From what I
That's Bill.
understand, yeah, that was Bill. That was Bill. Bill was also on the early Doobie Brothers stuff, or Bob Seger. I remember seeing him with James Taylor.
I
Even
mean, their most iconic piano part is the China Grove, and that's all Bill.
right, absolutely. And yet, on Little Feat albums, it's like a cross between Professor Longhair and Joseph Zawinul and Herbie Hancock. You know what I mean? It's got that thing, and lots of others too, of course. But I mean, it's just he's just. I mean, who is this guy? You know what I mean? I mean, he's just everywhere. I mean,
I mean,
he's like everything.
he's top five rock piano for me. I mean, he's up there
Boom.
with Leon Russell and Nicky Hopkins and all those guys. I mean, he's right in that pantheon of the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chuck Leavell, he's right in
Right.
that school.
Right. That's just amazing. It's just amazing. Um, so so that's going to go on for a while. The farewell tour is going to go on for a while
I
then.
think we're gonna go until the wheels come off, but hopefully the wheels will be off a plane and not a bus.
Right. 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 Right.
That's kind of the idea, Make some take the best gigs where we can sit in a nice hotel for a few days and then go home, check in on our families, go back out again.
Yeah. Sure.
Get
All
the
right.
expenses way down, make the experience nicer for the audience and the band.
Right. Right. So now I gotta talk to you about the fact that obviously you know a lot about a lot of different kinds of music because you got your Little Feat and the Allman Brothers influence. But when I listen to El Dorado Slim on YouTube, like the clips from them, that's more like Grant Green, right? Is that correct? And
Well, yeah, I mean, the inspiration was I went to Milwaukee High School of the Arts in the 90s, and it was the most amazing jazz program. And I was hanging with the lab combo. They're all like insanely talented, super successful musicians now. It would take me all day to talk about everyone in the band. But suffice it to say, there was a faction in the band who had come out of a combination of the Baptist church and hip hop, and there was another faction that had come out of like rock and roll and what would be called jam band music and more like bebop jazz. And at one point, I was always a record collector, and I read this interview when I was a sophomore in high school with Stevie Ray Vaughan, who had passed away a few years before that. And in the article, he talked about this album, Grant Green Alive. And I had been trying to find it in record stores for probably about a year. And then, end of my sophomore year, I found the vinyl in Milwaukee in a random record store. And I have it here. It didn't even have the original cover. It's a white sleeve, and someone had Sharpied Grant Green on it.
my,
And I grabbed the white
grading copy or
sleeve.
something?
I grabbed the white sleeve, I looked in the center, and it said Grant Green Alive. And the first song was called Let the Music Take Your Mind, the Kool
Yeah.
and the Gang song.
Yeah.
So I ran home and put it on, and it just changed my life, man. When I had heard Grant Green before a lot, but it was like when he was playing swing music, and I loved it. I loved it. But this was like Maceo Parker or King Curtis playing guitar,
Yeah.
which is what I had already been trying to do my whole life. And all of a sudden I found this record. I go, oh my God, this guy did this. Like, this is it. This is the shit.
Yeah.
And I put it on cassette and I brought it into my combo at school. And it was incredible because we listened to it and everyone was freaking out. Okay. Everyone, no matter what their proclivity was towards music. And then Down Here on the Ground came on. Do, 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 and the groove kicks in, and it's the Tribe Called Quest song we'd all been listening to.
Yeah.
And everyone went crazy.
Yeah.
And I go, we need to learn this album. So our ensemble learned the whole album. And the first gig we had at school doing it is we played at the school assembly for about 1,000 kids. And we played 2 or 3 songs off Grant Green Alive. And I'm going to tell you, man, this place turned into a fucking riot. And we had guys jump up and start freestyling on the mic. And like, then we were playing all these solos. And like the place, it was like a punk rock show. They had to shut us down. The professor actually had to unplug everything.
Yeah.
And I said, this is like, this Grant Green shit is like rock and roll. Like,
Yeah.
this is the same thing as Liz Reed. So then I started having the band learn, like, we started learning a bunch of meter stuff. And
Yep.
and then I started a band outside of school with a bunch of guys about 20 years older than me who were the best musicians in town. Rick Holmes, Mike Pine, and Dave Cornett. We had a B3 with a Leslie. We were the only band in town who had one. And we parked in the Up and Under on Thursdays. And then we expanded that. So we had Grant Green, the Meters, Bobby Bland. Like, we'd mix it all up. And then I'd be doing that during the day. But it really evolved my guitar style more than anything. And when I wanted something to do at home when I wasn't on the road with Little Feat with my friends, where I wouldn't have to sing, because like I'd be out there singing so much and I'd want like a break from it, and just where I could play my guitar.
Right.
And I honestly, I took that high school songbook, Crusaders, Quincy Jones, Nat Adderley, Eddie Harris, and these Grant Green arrangements, some of them, Kool and the Gang, a bunch of Kool and the Gang. And I took all these charts I had from high school and I put together a show, and I called my friends here in New York City who are all just super badass players. And I said, I want to do this 6-piece band with like percussion, organ bass, trumpet, tenor, guitar, and drums. And I want to do this thing where we can play like, I want to recreate this high school band I had.
Right.
That was like, it was a jazz band, but it was like actually like a punk rock band when you would come see us. And basically what I've been describing, people love the El Dorado Slim Show, because for people who are fans of jam band music, it's kind of like coming and hearing Liz Reed for 2 hours instead of for 15 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And we do play Liz Reed on every show, which I have a horn arrangement
Yeah.
that I did with the Greg Allman Band that we had played a couple times, where the horns take the melody and I'm playing like more like a Eddie Nolan, like James Brown funk rhythm to it.
Yep.
And I have the horns take it. So, and that was something that Greg Allman thought of. So there's all these different, we play the song El Dorado Slim is a Little Feat instrumental that we haven't learned with Little Feat. So I came up with a 2-horn arrangement for El Dorado Slim that's different than how Little Feat ever played it, but we play the melodies and sections that you'd associate, and we go on our own journey. But so it does tie into the jam band world that way.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know how long ago this would have been, but I was a big fan of still am a big fan of the 4-camera feed at Smalls.
Yeah, I used to play there a lot with Jay Collins and
yeah. And you were doing some of that stuff. That's the Brickyard Band, right? That was
okay. So the Brickyard Band was my own group. That was a rock and roll band, and that was kind of that was the outgrowth of a friendship I had with Moses Petru, who's a great singer songwriter, multi instrumentalist. But I always loved his drumming, and I had a band where Diego Vogelino and Moses were double drumming, and then sometimes Moses would play keyboards or percussion. So he was kind of a triple threat. It wasn't strictly 2 drums, but we'd always have 2 drum kits. And then we had Jeff Hanley on bass and Ben Stivers on keys. And then eventually that switched to Brett Bass and Eric Finland. But it was always a 5-piece band. And we had two pretty renowned residencies in New York. We had one at this place called Bar Chord out in Brooklyn, was kind of where we started. And it was this amazing incubator where all these amazing musicians would come down and like sit in and hang out. The place would just, this tiny place would just be packed. And if you look up Bar Chord, B-A-R, and then chord, like playing a chord, C-H-O-R-D, there's a bunch of people would come and like film videos there and shit. And then we ended up at Rockwood Stage 2. And then we started doing Thursday residencies there where we'd get these 90-minute shows. And same thing, like Greg Allman came and sat in, and a whole bunch of people, Amy Helm, Taz Niederauer, Solomon Hicks, the list goes on and on. Every week we'd have this different cast of amazing musicians would come sit in with this band. And I mean, just like all great bands, eventually it just kind of, it became unscalable to take all 5 people on the road.
Well, yeah.
And I had to pare it back, and the band you saw was that was when I had gone back to just being a solo artist, which was never something I was really comfortable with. I mean, I had that 2 years that I did that, it was like a 2-year existential crisis for me, because I'd always been in a band. So when I did, even with my solo stuff, it was always based on like relationships and collaborations with people. You know?
But I would like to say that Saving Grace and Rust Belt are both really great albums. I really like those albums a lot.
Well, thanks, man. I'm glad you know they exist. Saving Grace, actually, we got out there. I had a good manager then, Jesse Guillermo. I just saw him yesterday, and picked up the last physical copies of that CD. Saving Grace was a really amazing effort that was supported by my fans financially.
Yeah.
And half the record is Al Green's rhythm section, the high rhythm guys,
Yeah.
Howard Grimes, Leroy Charles Hodges, and then the other half is a version of the Swampers from
Right.
Muscle
With David
Shoals.
Hood, but not Roger Hawkins.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Roger was too ill to play, sadly,
Yeah.
but we had David and Spooner.
But dude, you got to play with David Hood. David Hood played on "Woman's Gotta Have" It and the Staple
Ridiculous.
Singer song. That you played with David Hood, man, and you played with Jerry Jamot too.
Yeah, with the Greg Allman Band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw that band, and I was just like, wow, man. I mean, you that's the big three right there, man. Kenny Gradney, Jerry Jamot, and David Hood. You did all right there, man.
Well, and Leroy Hodges, and
Oh yeah, of course, yes, yes.
I got to introduce him to Kenny Gradney in Memphis when we were making the Little Feat Blues album.
All right, man.
I dragged Kenny down to BB King's, and Leroy was up there playing. And as soon as he came off, I introduced them to each other. Man, that was one of the proudest moments of my life, man. Just those two smiling and hugging each other, and just they had admired each other, their whole careers, but they had never met somehow,
Yeah, man. That's very cool.
you know.
So how did that happen then? I mean, was that something that you were specifically looking to record in Memphis and Muscle Shoals? I don't want to talk about a bunch of stuff that you're not
Well,
comfortable
that
with.
was all because of the Greg Allman Band, because Greg had Steve Potts on drums when I
Right,
joined in 2008, and Steve was in Booker T and the MGs, and he was
right.
cutting with high rhythm when Howard wasn't doing records.
Okay.
So I have grown up. I mean, I did a pilgrimage to Stax when I was 16, when I had a gig down there with that same band I played in Fort Wayne with, Willie and the Mob. And I actually wrote about it in the third verse of my song Endless Road. I went down to Memphis chasing the past. I only found a dirt parking lot covered with broken glass. That was Stax.
Yeah.
So when I was 16, 17, I got down there and I went to go take this pilgrimage to Stax. This is before the internet.
Yeah.
And I went to where it was supposed to be, and it was a dirt parking lot that had full of debris.
Yeah.
So I went to a record store and they were selling bricks of the original building,
Selling bricks.
selling the bricks of the original Stax building in the record store. And I said, "Man, this is like a crime against humanity. This is
Yeah.
like erasing history."
Yeah.
Because I'd been obsessed with Stax since I was a little kid. I was obsessed with Otis Redding
Sure.
and Booker T and the MGs. So I have this lifelong love affair, fascination with Stax records. So when I met Steve, who's like, his I think his uncle was Al Jackson Jr. I was like, "Yo, dude, I gotta meet everybody."
Yeah.
And eventually he got me to Scott Bomar and the Bokeys and Mark Franklin and Art Edmiston, who eventually joined the Greg Allman Band. Then I had this Memphis, New York City contingent with the Greg Allman Band. It was like, I used to call it, Art Edmiston had this saying, and I loved it. It was New York hustle, Memphis muscle.
Yeah.
So three of the cats were from Memphis, and then four of the cats are from New York City originally.
Yeah.
So that was like the sound of the Greg Allman Band on Southern Blood.
Yeah.
And those guys were mentored by High Rhythm, the Hodges brothers, Teeny, Leroy, Charles.
Right.
Teeny passed away before I got to meet him, but I met Leroy and Charles. I went to Japan with them and Carla Thomas and toured. All through Steve Potts. I met Scott Bomar. He was my co-producer, mixer on Saving Grace. And Bomar had this studio at the time called Electro. What was it called? Magnetic Electro. He works at Sam Phillips now. He actually did I introduced him to Little Feat too, and he did the Sam's Place record with us because he's the studio manager at Sam Phillips now. But he used to have his own studio. I can't remember the name of it. Electrophonic.
Okay.
And at Electrophonic, he had a deal in 2015, 16, 17 where High Rhythm would come in and cut there, and Howard Grimes would only cut there on drums. And Howard's the drummer on, Love and Happiness, and
Right.
So Glad You're Mine, and like,
Yeah, man.
he's the motherfucker. He's
Yep.
the guy playing the conga on Let's Stay Together. Like, he is the dude.
Yeah.
So
Specific hi-hat feel.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, he used two big crash cymbals for his hi-hats.
He did. Okay.
So, I was introduced to Howard by Scott Bomar, and I was like, all right, we did this jam. We jammed together, and I was like, we got to make a record where I'm going to get my songs and do this. And then at the same time, we did Southern Blood with Greg Allman, and I met the Rodney Hall and his dad Rick Hall,
Yeah.
and that family, and we spent a week there, and then they were like, hey, you got to come cut with us. And while I was there, I had lunch with Spooner Oldham and David Hood, and I was hanging out with them on and off through the week, and they were lovely, and obviously I'm just hugely influenced by them. I fell in love with the room at Fame in Muscle Shoals where we did Southern Blood. So when I went to make this record, it was like a thing where I said, all right, well, I went to my manager, Jesse, at the time, and I said, we got to raise enough money where we can do half these songs in Muscle Shoals and half these songs in Memphis, old school. Like, let's do this like the way Tony Joe White would have done an album.
Right on.
And then the last piece was the song Everything a Good Man Needs, which was that was the first song that Greg Allman and I finished writing together, but we never got a chance to record it. And the demo had gotten leaked by Greg's best friend Chank to their friend Taj Mahal. And as I was mixing Saving Grace, Taj Mahal called me and he was like, hey man, I'm in New York, I want to cut this song. He left me a voicemail.
Yeah.
And I jammed with him a few times in the past, so we knew each other. And I called him and I said, Taj, I didn't even know what song he was talking about when he left the voicemail.
Oh, okay.
And I said, what are you talking about? He's like, I got this recording from Chank, man, of y'all playing with Greg. And he's singing this song, and I want to get a cut on it. And I said, well, go for it, man. You know, what am I going to tell you, you know? And he goes, no, I heard you're making a record, man. I want to put it on your record.
Wow. Well, that's cool.
So, and he was in New York, and Bernard Purdy was in New York, who I've collaborated with a bit over the years. And Bernard called me the same day and just said, hey, man, do you want to hang out? I'm going to be in Harlem later. I'm going to Sylvia's where I live. And I said, you know what? Let's go to our friend Graham Hawthorne's studio around the corner from Sylvia's. And I said, how long has it been since you've seen Taj Mahal? And Bernard's like, oh, man, I'd love to see Taj. And I said, do you want to play on a record with him? Because we could go make a record and then go to Sylvia's. So that was the hook, man. It was like going to Sylvia's, boom, go around the corner to Graham's place, went downstairs. I got Brett Bass and Eric Finland to come over on bass and keys. We cut the whole thing live with Bernard and Taj, and that's Everything a Good Man Needs. So that track was done in New York City.
Okay.
But the whole rest of the record is Memphis and Muscle Shoals.
Well, that's kind of a nice full. Pardon me if I'm not on base here, but that's kind of a nice full circle kind of thing, because I think that Duane Allman in particular was very influenced by that first Taj Mahal record.
Well, you know the story about how Duane ended up playing slide. Do you know that story?
That's a Jesse Ed Davis thing, right?
Well, eventually, I mean, it's really his knucklehead brother kind of thing, because
Okay.
Greg had this idea, and I could almost guarantee you, I mean, they were basically teenagers at the time. I mean, Greg must have been 18 or something, or 19. Greg had this knuckleheaded idea to go, when they were in L.A. with their band, to take Duane out riding horses. And that's why I say I'm sure there was a girl involved. And they got on some horses, and as soon as Duane got on his horse, it bucked him right off, and he went down on his elbow, on his fretting hand, arm, and broke it. And he was so pissed at Greg. He was cursing him out, super angry. Went back to his apartment in L.A. and just holed up with a bunch of medicine with his arm in a sling.
Oh, the Corsedin bottle.
That's
right.
how we get there.
Yeah, okay.
So Greg was so afraid of his brother that week that he would whoop his ass with one arm that he stayed away. But at the end of the week, he bought his brother this new album, this Taj Mahal record, and the first song was Statesboro Blues.
Right.
And what he did was he went up to the front door of his brother's apartment, and he dropped the record, and he left a Corsedin bottle full of aspirin for his injury, knocked the door, and ran away. So Duane opens the door. He's got a record and aspirin, and he's like, oh, my brother, why is aspirin? Puts the record on, and then the story goes is that, I don't know how much later, but maybe it's a few hours, a few days later, whatever it is, Duane calls Greg, and he used to call him baby brother. He goes, baby bro, get over here. Get over here. I got to show you something. And Greg comes over. No talk of the injury whatsoever. And there's Duane in a sling with that aspirin bottle empty on his finger, and he's playing along with Jesse Ed Davis playing Statesboro Blues.
Yeah. Yeah. On Taj Mahal record. So that's cool. Yeah. And that's a great record. Those first few, the ones with Jesse Ed Davis and Taj Mahal.
I mean, Taj never made a bad record. I love every period. I love the stuff he did with Tony Bronigal too, man. I love those
Yeah.
Queen Bee and all those tracks, man. I mean, that shit is just
Yeah.
Taj is a national treasure, man. I mean, he's not only a real blues man, he's also an actual ethnomusicologist on a scale that is indescribable. I mean, I've spent time with him in dressing rooms where and there was one time where I did this Nashville TV show, and there were all these famous people. I mean, we were there with Greg Allman, and Taj was like sound checking his solo set, and here I am with like Greg, Leroy Parnell. There's a bunch of country stars. Chris Stapleton's there, and we're all sitting there, and Taj just like gave us a music class for like an hour. Like they had to stop the whole rehearsal for the TV show because every star that was there was just like so locked into him. And he was teaching us this like different African and Afro-Cuban rhythms and how they hooked up with different Delta blues guitar styles. And he's showing us all this shit. I mean, the guy is just he's a force, man. He's a force, and he's a beautiful cat. And I got to spend some amazing time with him, but him singing that song, I mean, I've got 6 solo albums and I've sung every song on all of them for better or worse, but this was the only time I didn't sing a song, and I was honestly never going to record this song. I always felt like that song that I wrote with Greg should be recorded by one of Greg's heroes, and lo and behold, it all just kind of fell into place.
Yeah, man, that's very cool. That's very cool. Now, Rust Belt, after that was recorded during the lockdown, correct?
Well, it started before the lockdown. So the band you saw, Eric Kalb and Brett Bass, we toured for a couple years and developed a very unique rhythmic interplay between us. Like Eric Kalb is a very unconventional drummer.
Yeah.
You know,
there's some great video of that band on YouTube.
There's tons of it. I mean, we did a bunch of TV shows you know, I made the album in 2019 first, and then I scrapped over half of it and started over again at the end of the pandemic.
Okay.
But I was starting to scrap it in March 2020. So very interesting. March 2020, right? I've already joined Whittle Feet. I joined Whittle Feet in October 2019 when Paul passed away. So I joined Whittle Feet. We get to March. In March, I'm getting an APA booking agent contract for my solo band. Everything's moving forward. I'm looking at record labels. I'm taking interviews in Nashville and New York. My whole solo career is going to be put on the worst possible timing you could ever have, because everyone I was associating with either left their major positions and started small operations or left the business entirely eventually.
Yeah.
But at this time, I had all this buzz going on, and I was selling a bunch of tickets in New York with my band. And so that band I was getting in the studio regularly, but it just wasn't coming together. So March 2020, the week before the shutdown, I had Charlie Drayton, one of my favorite musicians of all time, come down and cut drums on a song, which was the song Only Human.
Okay.
And then the shutdown happened, and I had to figure out how to redo some of these tracks. So I think 4 or 5 I kept as they were. And then I overdubbed on those. I had to build my own recording studio here in my office in Harlem. And we started the pandemic upstate at my mother-in-law's house near Woodstock for a few months. And then when it was safe to come back to New York, we came back, and I had a studio in here. And my longtime production partner and engineer, Charlie Martin, as we've been working together since the late 90s. I don't do anything without Charlie. He works for Whittle Feet now, too. He helped me kind of set the studio up. And then what I would do is cut shit in my home studio, vocals and guitars, and then get it to Charlie, and he would like mix it into the stuff.
Okay.
And then in 2021, we had Tony Mason come in and with Brett Bass, and we had him because I wanted to get his take on a few of the tunes also, of like, I had a lot of trouble on Rust Belt trying to get all the different feels right. And eventually we got it, but I had to be relentless with that album. And And then Justin Shipper added all that from Nashville, added all that. And it's funny, at the Taj show I was talking about, Justin was the pedal steel player on it. That's how I met him years before that. I got Shipper to do all that kind of, I call it cosmic pedal steel, the pedal steel with all the different delay and shit.
Yeah.
And then I also had Dan Littleton play with me on a couple tracks, who's one of my favorite guitar players. Amy Helm and Catherine Russell did a bunch of backing vocals. So, but that record was done, the rhythm sections were all cut live.
Okay.
But it has a lot of piecemeal overdubs, which I hadn't done in a long time. The last time I had done that was my first two solo albums, Dawnbreaker and Analog Monologue. Those records I played all the instruments on most of the songs. And that was a build track by track situation. I hadn't done that in a long time. But I always do like the rhythm guitar, bass, and drums live since, for the last 15 years. That's how I've always built the records.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Greg Allman Band. I would like to know, there are certain things I'd like to know about the dynamic of the band, but first we got to talk about, now you got into that through the saxophonist Jay Collins, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Jay was playing with Greg he started with Greg, I think, in 2000 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I met Jay in I don't know, 2004 or 5 or something in New York City. He was married to Amy Helm, or getting married to Amy Helm at the time. They were engaged and living in Brooklyn, and I was living in Brooklyn at the time. And I started playing guitar in Jay's band. And for years, he was telling me, man, I got to get you in Greg Allman's band. And then one day, August 2008, he invited me to Camden, New Jersey to sit in with the Allman Brothers. So Jay and I went together and sat in. And Greg just turned to me at the end and was like, you're in my band now. You're the guy
Wow.
I've been looking for.
That was your audition, was sitting in with the Allman Brothers.
Yeah, I was 29 years old. I had never met any of those guys.
So that would have been Warren and Derek and O'Teal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
Butch, J-Mo, yeah.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah. Mark Quinones, yeah.
who would
Yeah.
eventually join the Greg Allman band.
Yeah. And he's with the Doobie. Is he still with the Doobie Brothers? I think
He got to the Doobies through the Greg Allman band, and I met Bill Payne. That's how Little Feat really came together, was I met Bill Payne when we were on the road with the Doobies, and they would have me sit in
Okay.
with Greg Allman.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's kind of how all that comes together.
All right. All right. Cool. So once you got in, you became the musical director and band leader.
Not right away. When I joined, actually, Jay was the band leader when I joined. But what happened is when Greg was making this live album, Back to Macon, Greg and I had already become close, and we started writing a lot of songs together. He had started singing my song, Love Like Kerosene, on every show, and we were getting this kind of creative mojo between us. And when we had to make this live album, we had no time. We had to do the whole thing in one shot, and we brought in a horn section for the first time, and Mark Quinones, and basically I pulled that whole thing together. And that kind of became the first real day of me being the MD. And then we basically did a transition where Jay ended up getting a horn section and he became the horn arranger, and then I became the band leader. I mean, I was down front. I was working with Greg all the time. I was already cueing all the endings, and I was already organizing the guests and dealing with all kinds of shit with the Rolodex. So it was just kind of like a natural transition. And
Okay.
so that was probably the Back to Macon live record. What is that, 2013 or something like that? 14? That's when I took over as MD. So like the last few years of the band, I was the MD.
Okay. And I assume that even though he was sick for a lot of that, wasn't he? I mean, he had been sick for a
He
while.
was sick when I met him. I mean, he was doing interferon for Hep C when I met him. So, and then eventually he got the new liver, and then he had other complications all the time. And Greg really struggled with addiction and a lot of different problems. There were a lot of doctors around. I mean, it was always extremely difficult on the health front.
But I saw you with him in 2013, and he still sounded fantastic.
Well, he was hot then. I mean, he had the new liver, and he was, he got the new liver, I think, in 2011, like around when Low Country Blues came out.
Now,
And we did a world tour, and he had complications from the surgery at first, but he had a couple years where he was really doing great.
Yeah.
And then they found out that, he had that fucking piece of cancer that somehow had slipped out and landed on in his chest near one of his vocal cords of all things. So then that became, a bullet we had to dodge for a few years until he couldn't anymore.
Wow. Now, the Low Country Blues, I was going to ask you about that as well. Now, you were in the band that he wanted to use and wasn't allowed to. Is that
Well, T-Bone fired us, but not
wow?
before Greg's management hired us, which was very awkward. So we were all
Wow.
booked to go to L.A. and then we were disinvited. I think a week or two before the actual session. But
So was that because he wanted to use his own people?
well, I mean, look, T-Bone has his own sound. I mean, Jay Bellerose and alone, the drummer, just
Yeah.
has a very unique aesthetic and feel that is perfect for what T-Bone does. And I love the record personally. I know as many people who love the record as hate it. I was happy they got Doyle Bramhall to play on it because he's one of my favorite musicians, and
He does. He plays great on that album.
I really loved his work on it. You know,
Especially the what was the song you wrote with Warren Haynes? Just Another Rider.
yeah, we used to play. We played that on Letterman. There's a clip of us doing that on YouTube.
What a great song. What a
Yeah,
great.
they did a good job on that one, man.
Yeah.
They brought in some kid from Hawaii to play lead guitar on it, which I don't know how
Oh, that
that.
wasn't Doyle Bramhall on that?
No, that the lead guitar is some
My.
some kid from Hawaii that Greg met when he was on vacation there, like a teenager.
Oh, I really love the fact that they just sort of vamp for a while at the end before the end solo comes in, and then he just rips right away, and I just assumed that was Doyle Bramhall on it.
No, it's not. Doyle's playing
Damn.
rhythm on that
Okay.
one.
All right,
There
man.
are other people who think it's me. Some people think it's Doyle. I mean, it's whatever. I mean, it's a thankless life being a sideman.
Yeah.
That's why I've never been one. I may have started the conceit started as a sideman in the Greg Allman band, but it became a band very quickly once Greg and I hit it off. And every situation I've ever been in is a band. It's not. I'm terrible as a sideman. Actually, I think I do really well as a producer. I do really well as a band leader. I do really well as a band member or leader. But man, I am not the guy to call to like. Can you sound like this? Can you sound like that? Like it's just not my
Well,
thing, man.
but I mean, there's something to be said for that. I mean, it used to be, and I've heard you talk about this before. It used to be that you would call someone specifically for what they did, right? If you called Bernard Purdy, you got Bernard Purdy.
Well, the problem is now is people call me all the time and they're like, play like Lil George. That's like the biggest thing I get, and it's like no one can do that.
Right.
Like, I mean, the closest you're going to get to that is Fred Tackett playing slide, actually, because Fred sounds exactly like Lowell when he wants to, but he was Lowell's, best friend, and like, it's just a different thing. Like the sideman thing is just not, and you constantly get in these situations, where people are just like, sound like this, sound like that, but I don't do that. I mean. The way the guitars came out with Greg on Back to Making Live and Southern Blood, and the way they came out in the last two Little Feat albums, the stuff that I did, that's really what I do. It's kind of a hybrid. You can listen to those records and hear it, especially with the guitar layering with like Nashville tuned acoustics and acoustic guitars and how they work rhythmically. And then with lead guitars, I have a specific way that I like to mic things, and I really like a certain type of speaker and stuff, and but yeah, it's like I constantly now it's like the thing people call me for. They're like, do the Lil George thing, and I'm just like, well, I have a guitar that's tuned to open A, and I have a metal slide, and I'll play, but like I can't be
Yeah.
Lil George. Like, you want me to be fucking Picasso next? I mean, like, what? How do you be Lil George? It's like it's an impossible task on so many levels.
Right. Right. And I believe that the thing that I noticed coming up when I did was there were people like that. There was a Lowell George, and there was a Bill Payne, and there was a Frank Zappa, and there was a Donald Fagen, and there was a Michael McDonald, and there was, all those folks. There was a Greg Allman, there was a Dwayne Allman. You know what I mean? They didn't sound like other people. They
Yeah,
just,
the goal was to have your own sound
yeah,
always.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, so you were the the Greg Allman band, that last the last album you co-wrote at least one song, my
Well, I
only.
mean, there's only two original works from the band on Southern Blood. I mean, there's My Only True Friend that I co-wrote with Greg, and then there's Love Like Kerosene, which is my song from the
Right.
Brickyard Band album that Greg covered twice. So those are the only originals.
And everything
Everything
else was
else is
covered.
cover songs,
Yeah. Okay.
including Willin', actually, which was something Don Was brought in the picture, which is
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and did he by that time he wasn't able to tour anymore, correct?
We were touring.
You were.
I mean, you have to tour constantly if you want to do anything now. And it was already like that when we were doing Southern Blood. I mean, you know, if he wanted to have the Greg Allman band, he had to tour first. That's
Yeah.
probably why the album has so many covers, because there was so little time to deal with any type of original material.
Right. Right. So you had like I guess a year or so there then before you joined Little Feat?
It was longer than that because Greg passed away. Well, Greg had to stop touring in essentially the fall of, hold on a second, 2016.
Okay. So you say, yeah, it was way more than a year.
Fall winter 2016, like, because then Butch killed himself in December, and then May 2017 Greg passed away. And during all that, I was like, I made Saving Grace during that 2016-17 winter.
Hmm.
That was like over that winter while Greg was still with us but unable to sing at home. And then in 2017, that first summer, I started to tour with my solo band with Eric and Brett. So that was 17, 18, 19. So it was like 2 or 3 years of like Scott Sharrard band, full court press. And, it didn't go well.
Huh.
You know, we were kind of raging against the machine, and Jesse, my manager, and I, we were a little long in the tooth to rage. We both had young kids at home. I had a baby. February 2017, my youngest was born, and then I had my older child was like 7 or 8 or something. So it was just like, and then my manager had a baby and a toddler, and like we were in our early 40s, and we were trying to fight the man and like make this thing a success, and it just the machine just killed us. And then I started to rebuild my career in 2019 when Jesse left management. I just kind of self-managed and started to have this ridiculous amount of momentum going, and joined Little Feat in the midst of that when Paul passed away. And the idea was I was going to like sign with APA and have this parallel solo Little Feat career, because Bill was still with the Doobie Brothers when I joined Little
Right. I've
Feat.
seen Bill with the Doobie Brothers many times,
So
actually.
the idea, I think, initially with the old management, this isn't with our current management, but with our old management in 2019, was Bill's always going to be in the Doobies, and Scott's always going to have a solo career. So when Little Feat can play, Little Feat will play. That's kind of where it's eventually going now, essentially, as we're getting back to that. But
Yeah.
that was the conceit. And then when the pandemic happened, brought Tony Leone in on drums, brought in Vector Management with Ken Levitan and Brian Penix, and all of a sudden it became like, oh, Little Feat's gonna like make records and tour,
Yeah.
and Bill quit the Doobie Brothers. And at the same time, I said, you know what? Everyone I was working with has changed how they work, or they've left the music business, and it's not interesting to any of us anymore. I'm just gonna go with Little Feat and screw the solo thing. And Bill and I basically just let go of those things simultaneously and put the band as a priority.
So where did the call come from on Little Feat? I do want to talk a lot about Little Feat if that's okay. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah.
Um, which call?
The call to join Little Feat. You
Oh,
knew
that's
these
all
guys.
Bill. That was all Bill. Yeah, yeah. Bill's
Okay.
Bill's the band leader. We take turns kind of. We have aspects of co-leading. Like when we're on the road, I feel like we co-lead the band. But when we all go home, Bill really is the leader. I mean, he's doing like all the management meetings and really setting the pace. And then once we're on the road, we kind of trade a little bit where I'll make the set lists and help out with the band and do more of that. And when we make records, like I co-produced over half this last record, and the whole band produced Sam's Place. So I'm always lending a hand as a producer when we're in the studio and as a writer. But Bill's the leader, so anything you see us doing, I mean, Bill is signing off on it or calling the shots.
Okay. So Bill called you then,
Yeah.
and you knew each other you had met each other from the Greg Allman band.
Well, from the Greg Allman Doobie Brothers summer
Yep,
touring,
yep,
yeah.
yep, 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 yeah. So, and so he called you right before the pandemic then.
Well, he called me in the fall, early October 2019, because Paul Barrere was already terminally ill and he had to sub out an entire tour. And Larry Campbell and Teresa Williams, who are good friends of mine, had taken over in Paul's place, but they couldn't make the last two shows of a leg.
Okay.
So Bill called me and was like, "Yo, I need somebody for these two gigs." And they were actually they were in New York and Pennsylvania, so they were even local gigs for me, which made it even easier for
Wow.
me to
Yeah.
be part of it. And I went to the first gig to play with him, and Paul died that afternoon. And
Oh my.
we played that gig. First time I ever met everyone else in the band, and at the end of the gig, the guys, Fred and Bill in particular, came up to me and were like, "You're in the band now, dude. This is it." And
Wow.
I was like, "Holy shit, I didn't expect this at all."
Yeah.
I was getting ready to do this whole solo career thing.
Yeah.
And funny thing is that APA, Steve Martin at APA, was already doing Little Feat. And then when I told him I was going to do Little Feat, he's like, "This is great. We have Little Feat too. We'll have you and Little Feat. We'll have you guys together."
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's tremendous.
still our agency, by the way, Steve Martin and Seth Rappaport, but they opened their own shop during the pandemic. They left APA and opened Paladin, so they went to a smaller structure, but they still have Little Feat.
Well, just surviving that, I think that the entire culture went insane. I can only speak for myself, really, but I think the entire culture just
Well, I mean,
irreparably changed.
thank God we're sane now and everything's going really well.
Ah. Did you say that out loud? Is that you? Is that you?
Just a little, I mean, the implicitness of the irony in that, I think, is the only thing we may all be able to agree upon.
Well, I mean, just the dread of waking up in the morning and if I can speak for just a second, this is all about you, but the dread of looking online and for the news every day. It's just what horrible shit happened today, or
Well,
what's
and
going to happen.
it's coming for us too, man.
Yeah.
We're gonna be feeling it more every day, and
That's what I mean. I was on the radio. I was on NPR for 28 years. That's when I first contacted you to talk to you about who played on what because I couldn't find credits for Rust Belt.
oh, okay.
And this was probably a year and a half
Did
ago.
I get you everything?
Oh, dude, you were like right away.
Okay.
You were the coolest, man.
Okay, good.
But
I just, I try to, hold up my end of the bargain as
my
much as I
thing was,
can.
that's, to a certain extent, I talked to you about, do you feel like you're furthering a language? And I really felt like that was a radio show that was not only trying to find new stuff, but trying to further a language, make sure that this stuff doesn't disappear. And then they decided to put 8 minutes of NPR news at the top of every hour. So that's three newscasts in 3 hours. So it's like this. I don't want to go on about this too much, but it was like having a big steaming turd in the middle of your show 3 times. And so I stopped doing that. I couldn't bear to hear that voice. And you know who I'm talking about. I couldn't bear to hear that
Was
voice.
it Steve Inskeep? Who's that?
No. In the middle of my
Oh, that voice.
that voice in the
Don't say
middle
it, or your video might get taken down.
That's right. In the middle of my radio show, it's just like I'm so far removed from this, and this is like I always thought of myself as like the local antidote to that.
Yeah, I mean, but if you're on NPR, I mean, look, this is our reality. I mean, no one's gonna do themselves any favors. I mean, I know some of these people who are like, "Well, I'm just tuning out." It's like, well, isn't that nice for you?
Yeah.
And by the way, eventually, you're gonna go to the pharmacy and your meds are gonna be fucking $7,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, there's a lot of problems with all this shit, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I mean, with music, we can only do what we do. I mean, there's people, U2 tried to do the EP and Springsteen did the song and all that, and that's cute and everything. But I wrote a Substack piece about this recently, and I took a lot of shit for it from some of these freaks online. But the only successful uh, protest act I've seen that's reached the whole populace that speaks to our way out of this madness was the Bad Bunny halftime show.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah,
the only thing I've seen that actually got to both sides
yeah,
and probably converted 2% or
yeah.
3% of people from the other side over to it, right?
Which is actually stunning.
It's a major achievement. It's like
Yeah,
beyond a major achievement, but he had to he the Bad Bunny thing is he brilliantly framed and attacked the issue in every set and sequence of that performance, visually, musically, and with its message. And I think this whole idea that baby boomers and Gen X are going to like you're not going to be able to write and disseminate Ohio or Fortunate Son or All Along the Watchtower anymore and have everybody listen to it. It just doesn't work like that anymore.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, don't we all have 15-second attention spans for the most part? From scrolling all the
Yeah,
time.
and you need that. You need somebody who can step up to the visual element of spectacle. The other side of that was Kendrick Lamar's performance from the previous year, which
Right.
I was saying was kind of like the opening act for Bad Bunny. It's like the Kendrick Lamar thing was like the we are definitely in trouble, and everyone was like whatever. And then the Bad Bunny thing was like if we don't love each other, we're fucked.
Yeah. Which is true.
Yes.
Yeah. So we got a little away there, but we're back at 2021, I think, is when Little Feat really picked up when they got Tony Leone in the band.
Yeah, well, we got Tony technically during the pandemic because he recorded the Long Distance Love remake with us and Amy Helm,
Right.
and that was essentially his audition. And then
Brilliant drummer, and he's really got that Richie Hayward spirit.
he's the best, man. I mean, he's killing it. I think we did our first rehearsal in shit. Was it December? Could it have been December 2020?
Okay.
I mean, we were like way out there early. I think we all got like, I remember getting like my second shot of mRNA and like going to rehearsal or something. It's like
Yeah.
we were like right at the reopening
Well, there
somehow.
was, I mean, I remember in 2020, I did gigs in the summertime,
Yeah.
late summer. I would go and do local, like the
Was
bars.
that Hot Vax summer? Or no. That was the real pandemic. I think it was
That was it.
2021 when we
That
did
was
it.
it. Like it was safe. And then in the fall, it all came back again. And they started
Yes. My
canceling.
my timeline sucks. It was like
Well, that's because
whenever.
it's all last year because we all lost our
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
it was March and then we got through that. Yeah, it was like 2021 we hit the road.
Yeah. So, and now was that what, I mean, once again, you're playing iconic parts that you grew up with, right? And you're singing the Lowell George stuff too. I mean, was that daunting or was that something where everybody made you real comfortable or it was just you walked in and went, I can do this or
I spent the whole pandemic studying the shit out of this music with Tony. We'd spend time on the phone and sending each other like all these different bootlegs from YouTube of live shows.
yeah,
And my Rosetta Stone became 72 to 77. That was like, particularly 72, 3, and 4 became like my absolute obsession. And when went into the first rehearsals, these guys hadn't played these arrangements on these tunes in these keys with these tempos in a long time. Maybe since the 80s, maybe since the 70s, some of the tunes.
okay,
And they were shocked at how good they were in the 70s and how they had kind of morphed the music in very cool ways, but that they realized, well, we still have the chops to play like we did in 73
yeah,
or 74 at this gig where we medleyed. Like the first thing I did is I brought back the medleys from the mid 70s where they do, Spanish Moon, Skin It Back as a medley, or they would do the Dixie Chicken, Tripe Face Boogie, Teenage Nervous Breakdown to end a show, all three as a medley together as this big 20-minute fucking opus.
yeah,
So that was the first thing I suggested to bring back. And then we found a bunch of the deep cuts. We were doing like, when we first came back, we did a by request tour. So we were doing Perfect Imperfection and Fool Yourself and all these amazing fucking songs
Yeah.
that those songs they had never played live,
Wow.
right? Strawberry Flats from the first album. Like we started doing all that shit. And some of this shit they hadn't either played since the 80s, 70s, or ever. Easy to Slip we started doing, which Will never wanted to sing live, so we started doing it.
All right. Cool. So did you, I mean, 72 would have been before Kenny Gradney and
No, this is 72 post those guys joining.
okay. All right. So it wasn't like Roy Estrada stuff.
I mean, I checked out some of that shit, but I
Right.
was I was going off. I wanted to have Paul, Sam, Kenny. I want the six-piece ensemble sound. That to me is like their peak.
Absolutely.
Well, Waiting for Columbus is the peak, but there is that 72 to 74. Maybe you can stretch it to 77, but 72 to 74, Lowell is like just unstoppable on these
Absolutely.
live recordings. He's unstoppable.
And then it began
And you
to
can
slow
hear
down.
them rallying around him every show. They're like, it's like this big rally of like, holy shit. Like
Yeah.
everyone is just crushing shit.
Right. Now, do you have a favorite album by Little Feat other
It's
than
definitely Waiting for
Is
Columbus.
it?
I
Okay,
mean,
okay. Because
100%.
that's me too. And then I was a really big fan. I know that this isn't a popular opinion, but I was a really big fan of Time Loves a Hero. That was the first one that I bought.
For me, it's Waiting for Columbus, number one, then Sailing Shoes.
Okay.
Sailing Shoes to me, the way that album was recorded and mixed with Ted Templeman, I just, I don't know. That record changed my life when I heard it for the first time as a kid, and I love every song on that record. Every song. I love Texas Rose Cafe. I love all that. We've played all that. We played the whole album at a few shows a couple years ago. And I think that album is like a true masterpiece. And then the other records, I love them all, but there'll always be a thing where I feel like, collaboratively in the studio, maybe their best was like Dixie Chicken. But I also have, like, last record album has Long Distance Love, which is my favorite Little Feat song.
Yeah.
So, and that recording is a masterpiece. But then my second favorite is Mercenary Territory, but not the studio version, which I think is so lame compared to the live version, which is
Right.
a fucking masterpiece.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, man. That's and the two solos in the solo section. Holy shit, dude! Wow.
I play that solo note for note every night we play it.
Do you?
Yeah, I learned it.
All right. That was always a struggle because there are some really tricky things. If you're playing drums along with that, there's some really tricky things where you end up
Well,
backwards.
we learned all of them.
Wow.
I'll send you a clip of us playing it because we did Waiting for Columbus for a whole year live. It was like being in the
Oh, I know.
Lion
I
King.
saw that tour. I saw that
So
tour.
you heard us play it then.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Now, you were talking about how there was a nostalgia thing happening for a lot of people. But when I saw you play the Waiting for Columbus, you got to the first side was the first side. And then you got to, I think, Day or Night. And you did a solo that was like 12 minutes long.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And man, it was like everything. It was like I was like, you know, where's this guy coming from? And I was just so absolutely stunned. And I was so, that was like, I'm sure you've seen concerts where you think, okay, this is going to be cool. This is going to be cool. And then you get to a certain point in the concert and you think, I'm never going to forget this. This is unbelievable. How is this good? And I'm sitting here right in front of it. That's
Wow,
how I felt. And
that's a hell of a review.
it turned, well, yeah, I'm pretty grandiose when it comes to Little Feat, man. I've been very impressed. I saw you last year in Shipshawana as well, and I just thought that was an absolutely stunning show as well. Just oh my God, it's just like you're firing on all
Well,
cylinders.
thanks, man. Shipshawana. I remember this gig. So that was the place. It was that the place that looks like a performing arts theater in Branson, Missouri, or
Yes,
something.
it does with all the wagon wheels and shit.
Yes, yes. I remember that gig well.
It was you guys were incredible, and I know Tony. So I talked to Tony, and Tony brought Kenny Gradney out, so I could talk to Kenny Gradney.
Nice.
I asked to talk to you too, but you weren't around. But Kenny and man, Kenny was 20 times the character that I thought he would be.
Oh, he's amazing.
And that was just incredible. But I just wanted to say back to that original thing was that I don't you guys, it was like there was a certain element of I don't give a fuck that I really didn't expect that we're going to play now. We're really going to play. It's like when you go to see, and no offense to Tower of Power, but when you go to see Tower of Power, everything is a very concise medley. You know what I mean? They don't really stretch out. At least no, most of the time they don't stretch out, you know, but you guys really did. I mean, you were absolutely really ripping. And Billy took a couple of keyboard solos that I just thought were, wow, man, he's still got all that Bill Payne thing happening.
Well, they always did. They're one of the founding jam bands. I
I
mean,
know.
they're the ones who get the least credit for it. But particularly Bill and Paul, Lowell was always more like a, this is something I've been talking about a lot for years, is because I've been living this since I was a child, was how foundational like the Kind of Blue album was for me.
Yeah.
And then to get in conversations with Greg Allman and Bill Payne about Kind of Blue, and really understand that two guitar sound that the Allman Brothers started was kind of like Dickie was like Train and Dwayne was like Miles in terms of how the tone, they wanted to be like trumpet and tenor sax. And they consciously kind of did that. And with Paul and Lowell, there's that thing. And with Bobby and Jerry Garcia, there's that thing. They all are like on this model of the two guitar thing is like the Train Miles thing.
Yeah.
There was the quintet and then eventually the sextet that would be Kind of Blue. But those guys all listen from Kind of Blue straight back to the quintet. So, but when you're in one of these bands with these guys and they hear, I mean, look, Fred can fucking improvise like ridiculous long solos, and he has one on Day or Night, and Billy has one. Like all three of us take these ridiculously long solos on that song. It's the model of playing So What. It's a vamp, it's a modal vamp,
Right.
and you're like Impressions or So What or one of those tunes where you're kind of taking everybody on this psychedelic trip. And all of the foundational jam bands, Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead, and Little Feat, had these parts in the show where they would do this. And for Little Feat, they also had for years, they had Day at the Dog Races and all these other like instrumental tunes, El Dorado Slim.
Yeah.
They were instrumentals they would play where Lowell would go off the stage and get high and they would jam for like 20 minutes. So the band has a long history of doing that.
Well, Day at the Dog Races is like the Mahavishnu Orchestra. That's an incredibly difficult
And
song.
that was one of their biggest influences too.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah.
That's incredible.
Consciously, Weather Report and Mahavishnu, they're super into Weather Report and Herbie and all that, and so am I. And I hear all that shit as rock and roll essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So in that band, then Fred would be Miles and
Okay, so this question came at a good time because I was teaching something the other day, and I got this together. So basically, if we let's use Kind of Blue, let's use the sextet model since
sure.
Little Feat's a sextet, right?
Yep.
So in this, the voices are Fred is Miles, Bill is Coltrane, and I'm Cannonball.
All right.
Because what Cannonball did was, and it's like Kind of Blue is like a Shakespearean play. It's also one of the most important rock albums ever made because every rock musician is obsessed with that album. And it's like a Shakespearean play. But Miles and Fred are similar, and Fred's a trumpet player who loves Miles Davis.
Sure,
So
yeah.
when he plays guitar, he has a trumpet-like phrasing. And then Bill will play these sheets of sound on the keyboards. Very expansive kind of Coltrane, Wayne Shorter type stuff.
Right.
And the way I play is more like Cannonball because, Cannonball was an educator. He was age-wise somewhere between Miles and Coltrane. And his style was more kind of like all-encompassing of what everyone was doing. And he was kind of like trying to carve his own way around these two masters. And
Right.
that's kind of how I see myself with Bill and Fred.
Okay. I think he kind of had he was influenced by very influenced by Charlie Parker, but he was also one of the first real soul jazz artists, though, too.
Yeah, Cannonball had a, Cannonball had a real, he could really stick it down the middle and make it swing in a certain way. And that's how I try to play guitar. I try to, when I'm playing lead guitar, I really want people to feel like, almost like they want to get up and move. I really like having a strong downbeat, you know.
Well, I just thought when I saw you for the first time with Little Feat during the Waiting for Columbus tour, it would have been 2022 or 2020. I think it's 2023. I just really thought that I was really just blown away with your performance and your guitar solo, just your performance overall and the solos in particular. Just really, I really thought that it wasn't. I didn't feel like you were trying to recreate something. I felt like you sort of made it a new band, not you by yourself, of course, but having you there made it a new experience.
Well, thanks, man. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, like I said, I watched Warren Haynes do it with the Allman Brothers when I was growing up, and I try to think about, on my weakest day, I try to think about Warren and be like, all right, well, Warren, he really embodies the spirit of the original band, but he's not
Yeah,
Dwayne or Greg. He's not like a mythic, iconic legend like they are, but he's an interpreter at the highest level.
yeah.
And with Little Feat, that's what I try to do in the day in, day out of playing the back catalog for sure, because you can't be these guys. So you've got to figure out how to be yourself, but then also play the school of music. You've got to be in that school of music. You can't try to bring in some other bullshit that doesn't exist in the style.
Right, 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 right. Yeah, context. Yeah, yeah. So the last album, I'm a big fan of the last album. I really like that album a lot, and I just wondered what stands out for you on that.
Hmm. Well, I mean, the conceit was pretty insane to me. I mean, 13 new Little Feat originals. That's like, what are we doing here?
But man, why not?
Well, we did it, and I was really happy with the material on the record. I think that the material was what I was most worried about.
Those are great songs.
Well, thanks, man. I mean,
Shipwrecks is incredible,
oh,
man.
thanks. Yeah,
Yeah,
that tune turned out really cool. It was amazing to bring songs that I wrote. There's a few on the record that I wrote all by myself, and to kind of have those as demos and have the guys learn them and then go into a rehearsal and hear them play them and hear them turn into Little Feat songs by how they're arranged.
yeah,
That was, I can't even describe what that felt like. That was crazy.
yeah.
I
Now,
mean,
what
how
is
many
it?
people have had that experience? It's I'm very lucky to have that. And I think the record really turned out well. I mean, there are like there's a case to be made. I think that we had to cross that Rubicon to really seal the fate of this lineup. And I think we successfully crossed it, and that's saying a lot. I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't do another album. I think it would start to become ridiculous. I mean, we're talking about doing a live album.
Okay.
We have that kind of partially already in the can. But I think that album is a great sort of last studio album for the band. Honestly, that was how I approached it from my chair.
I just thought it was a really cool move. I mean, how many times there's a John Oates joke where he says, "What's the last thing you want to hear at a classic rock concert? This is a song from our new album."
Totally, he's
Yeah.
right.
But this one, man, this one was really great, and you really jammed, and the songs were great, and the rhythm section sounded fantastic, and it was Bill Payne sounding like classic Bill Payne. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I love Bill's songs. That he contributed to. He wrote songs with Charlie Starr and Robert Hunter
Yeah.
and John Leventhal. So he had some amazing co-writers on his tunes as well that and their influence brought some interesting vibes into it. And Tony and Bill and I wrote that opening track, 4 Days of Heaven, and I
Yeah.
thought that
Great
was a cool
song, man.
collaboration with the
Great
three of
song.
us.
Yep.
Thanks. I mean, I love the record. I just don't think records do anything for bands of this era. I think that it's all about the show, and I think the way we play the show as we are now is enough. Like it's pretty challenging, and man, I've the one thing I will say about making a new record that I realized once we had to go out and promote it was, oh my God, tonight we can play 17 songs or 18 songs, and I don't have any room to put in One Love Stand or Texas Rose Cafe. Like those will, because I keep putting these new songs in. We're like,
Yeah.
enough already. Like we need to play like the old songs are so good, you
Yeah.
know. Snakes on Everything and Strawberry Flats from the first record, Truck Stop Girl. Like that first record is insane.
Yeah.
People haven't heard those songs live. And young people come to the gig and they'll hear any of those songs and they could be new or old. They're not going to know.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of my point is I think it was cool, but making an album is very expensive. And as a business proposition, it's probably the worst thing you can do for a legacy rock band because, like you said, people don't really want to hear the new material, and you have to spend a fortune to make it right.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I do think though that we've hit a point where most everything is kind of meaningless. So at least I have that.
Well, the gig is not meaningless. That's why I'm saying that that's the one place we can all put our energy that
Yeah,
pays off.
yeah.
360. That's a 360 payoff.
I'm sure you miss going to the record store and getting the new records, though, don't you? Don't you? I mean,
I mean, do I miss going to the record store? I mean, yeah, it was something to do, and I would get to know like Tower Records in New York was really the jazz department. I learned so much from the people who worked there when I first moved here. But yeah, I mean, I stood in line to buy D'Angelo's Voodoo, and that definitely made it even more special than it
right.
already was. Um, but at the same time, I mean, media is media. Art is art. You've got to go with, I mean, Hendrix wouldn't be playing electric guitar now. He'd be working in Silicon Valley or something. You know,
I hadn't thought of that.
he's too smart. He would have been too smart for music the way it is now. When Hendrix played a Stratocaster, no one had ever heard any of that stuff come out of a guitar or
Right,
heard pedals used like that. Or what was important was his artistic voice, not his tools.
right.
The tools have to change,
Yeah.
except
Okay.
for, like I said, Yo-Yo Ma and Leonard Bernstein. And for the hopeless romantics among us who want to hear chamber music played properly, there'll be people who want to hear the Grateful Dead and Allman Brothers played properly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And there'll always be markets for that.
So you've got when does the Little Feat tour start back up then?
It starts in April in Florida, and then we're going all over the U.S. basically for the rest of
Okay.
the year.
Okay, great. And you're also involved. You've got more El Dorado Slim gigs coming up, and there's
Yeah,
another.
we're playing the bitter end of June. We're playing the Rochester Jazz Festival that same weekend in Rochester, New York, and we're playing at the Falcon in upstate New York in May. That's all I got for El Dorado so far. And then look out for Fred Tackett and I. We're going to be doing these duo tours. I think we got one in July and one in December coming together.
And you recently did something with the CKS band?
Oh yeah, with Bruce Katz and Randy
Yeah.
Charlanti from the band and Bruce Katz. Yeah, we do some gigs sometimes. I mean, I don't think we're going to do anything else this year. Maybe around Christmas in the Woodstock area where they live, but that's just something I do. I love Bruce and Randy. They're unbelievable musicians, and we get together and just play old tunes by the band. I mean, I was in the Greg Allman band with Bruce, so we'll play a little bit of Allman Brothers stuff. I've always been a lifelong Ronnie Earl fan, and Bruce is on all those Ronnie Earl
Yeah.
albums. So
Yeah.
we'll play some of that stuff. We'll play Bruce's music, some of my music, a bunch of the band. Because Randy was best friends with Levon, and we all played with Levon. Bruce played with him, I played with him, so there's a lot of that. And those guys live in Woodstock, and my mother-in-law lives up there, and we have a house up there together, and we're up there all the time, so it's my excuse to go hang with my buddies.
Cool, man. Very cool. Very cool. So anything else coming up that we should know about? You've got your solo tour. You've got the Little Feat tour, farewell tour going on this year.
Yep.
Anything else that you've got starting going on that
Well, the Fred and Scott
Fred and
thing, and
Scott?
then
Yes.
and
Yes.
then I'm still producing a lot of records. I'm gonna launch my own teaching website pretty soon. It's going to be an academy that you can subscribe to. I'm developing it with a friend of mine who does these things for a living. Um, and I'm very excited about that because I'm
Yep.
as passionate about teaching as I am about playing music. So I'm trying to create a platform where I can create a library, sort of a pedagogy of content around, American roots music, and
Absolutely.
all that it encompasses.
Yeah. Okay. So do you teach privately in your house or
Sometimes, I mean, I have a select kind of coterie of students, but almost all of them are on Zoom. So,
okay.
and I teach in the off times, but not as much as I probably should be doing
Yeah.
privately. But the academy is really where I want to get to because what I want to do is build a giant platform where there's just a library of content that people can subscribe to and receive, and then there'll be different tiers of involvement, and at the highest tier you can get private lessons. That's probably what I'll do eventually.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for all the great music, man. Thank you
Thank you,
very
buddy. This was great. I mean, you listened to all my albums. That's amazing.
well. Yeah, man. They're
Usually
really
people
good.
don't know any of my solo stuff.
Well, but that's too bad for them, man. I mean, the song Bad News is incredible, man. That's
Thanks.
a great song.
Well, tell the kids. We got to get some kids to start cutting my records. I had a band, the Chesterfields. Did you ever hear any of that
Oh,
stuff?
yeah, 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 yeah. That was the band that you moved from the Midwest to New York.
Well, with Sean Dixon, but then we started like a 10-piece band here with horns and backup singers. And
Yeah.
do you know that record, Henry Street Soul?
I know some of it. I've heard some of it.
So that record was a live band, and I mean, we were doing what the Tedeschi Trucks band is doing. We were doing that in like 99, 2000.
Hmm. Cool.
10, 12-piece band with backup singers and horns playing rock and roll, you know?
Okay. Before I leave you, is there anything from like back in the day or something that you've been listening to lately that you would recommend for the folks checking this out?
From back in the day.
Back in the day,
I mean,
you
that's
know,
like,
we talked about the Renaissance period, the 1960, let's say 1966 to 1980, or however you would
I'd have to
put
look at
something
my
back then.
I'd have to look at my Spotify
Yeah,
to
man.
answer
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Or if it's something new that you want to hip everybody to, I would be way cool to find out what that would be.
Well, I mentioned some of the newer artists that I've
Oh,
obsessed
yeah, yeah,
with
yeah.
earlier.
Absolutely. We got that.
Um,
Yeah.
what have I been checking out? That's a really good question. I've been reading this book. I'm going to recommend a book instead by
Let's
Joe
go.
Boyd, the famous producer, Joe
Okay.
Boyd,
Joe Boyd.
Boyd.
Hmm.
And it's called, I think the title is Only the Rhythm Remains.
Okay.
And it's this study of how African and Caribbean music came to America and shaped all of our music. And it's like a fucking 800-page book, and I finished it a month ago, and I have still not recovered from the amount of artists I discovered through this book and all the different connections I've made. So I'd say read that book and just earmark everything. I've been listening to tons of Cuban music and all different types of African music because of that book, and it's been unbelievable. And then WWOZ, like I
Right.
turn that app on every day and listen to it, and that's real radio curated by DJs. That is like a master class. And Saturday afternoon, turn on WWOZ. They start with world music, and they move into the funk block party show. It's unbelievable. It's like 6 hours of the best music you've ever heard, and you'll always discover something you've never heard before while you sit there and listen to it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually found out about that station through the HBO show called Treme that was on
Yeah, I
about
watched that
15 years
show.
ago. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
found out Steve Zahn was a DJ. And I said, I wonder if that's a real station. And so I looked it up and it's a real station. And man, sitting out in the back porch in the summertime listening to that online that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, Saturdays are incredible. And then Sundays, you have the gospel show in the morning is insane. And then that goes into bluegrass in the afternoon and Dixieland at night. It's crazy.
It's a wonderful history lesson. Yeah.
But that's what I'd say, just do that. And, it's in terms of back in the day. I mean, we all know all the classic rock stuff and blues and all that. I mean, you got to know all that stuff. But, this music is,
Well, people don't necessarily know that anymore, though.
well, then that's on them. I mean, I was raised in all that, so that's
Yeah.
old hat to me. So I'm living in the I'm living in trying to understand, Arsenio Rodriguez and like all these different Cuban and African musicians um, who shaped the music. You
All right,
know.
cool. Cool. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
having me, buddy. This was a great talk.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All
I
right,
hope to see you at a Little Feat gig or something like that.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right, thank you. Have a
All right,
great day.
bro. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.